Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to show you what we did today in class. We took some notes and talked about atomic structure and different symbols. So we're going to kind of rip through this presentation and hit the highlights, and then I'm going to show you how to do the problems that are assigned on your homework this week. So here we go. All right. So we started with this morning. I'm going to try to present my screen and remember to do all of those things today. So, all right. So this morning they started with this question. How are elements different from each other? And what I asked them was like the elements on the periodic table. How are the elements different from each other? So can you think about that? What would you say? How are elements different from each other? Can you think of some things? I gave them a few moments to think it over, and then they talked about it with each other. And we came up with these things. So feel free to write these down in your notebook. You can take all the notes that you want. You can use these notes on the quiz next week. Things we know about the elements. Some of the kids said they have different amounts of protons, which they remembered that from physical science. Some are radioactive. That is true. Their names are different. They have different name origins. Some are from Greek, some are from Latin, some are named for famous people, some are named for famous places. They have different atomic masses. Some will react violently with water and air. They have protons, electrons, and neutrons, which are really small pieces of the atoms. Protons, they said, give the elements their characteristics. It's the proton number that determines what they will behave like. They can have different charges. Some can be positively charged, some can be negatively charged, depending on what happens to the electrons. And let's see, was that it? Oh, yeah. And then can be gases, metals, nonmetals, liquids. You can have all kinds of different phases of matter for the elements and just different characteristics of each. So that's what they came up with this morning. And then we moved on to talking about atomic names and symbols. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to go over just some, hopefully this will be review for most of you, but I'm going to use the ladybug here and try to show you some things that we did this morning. Okay, so I told them that they're going to need 3 colors. Okay, 3 different colors. So let's see if I can find another color here. And I'll just use a pen. I'll just use a black pen. Okay, so with these different colors, what you're going to do, you need to make one of your colors be a proton number. And you can list that as protons. Have one of your color be electron number. And have one of your colors be neutrons. Neutrons is just 0. I don't know why I did it like that. Let's do protons positive. Let's do that. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyways, protons positive, electrons negative, neutrons are neutral, no charge. Okay, and of course the symbols for these, if you don't remember from physical science, it's a P with a plus, then an E with a little negative sign, and then of course an N with a 0 for no charge. Okay, so these are the subatomic particles of atoms. These are subatomic particles of atoms. Oops, particles. All right, so with these particles, what we did today, what we practiced is we just practiced drawing some things. The main thing I want you to get from this is every element is made up of atoms. Atoms are the base unit of elements, okay? And we want to learn how to name the element from particles. We want to come up with nuclear symbols today. We also want to figure out how to do a hyphen notation. And we want to do a drawing. And real quickly, let's see. I'm going to go back here and check something. Okay. Wanted to make sure I was recording. That would be a bad thing. Okay, let's go back. All right. So those are the main things that we got to figure out today. So let's start here. We're going to try doing hydrogen. We're going to draw some hydrogen isotopes. Hydrogen isotopes. Okay, now hydrogen is an element on the periodic table. It's a gas. And isotopes are just atoms of hydrogen, but that will have different weights, different masses based on their neutron number varies. Okay, so let's draw this out. So let's draw the first one, a hydrogen isotope that it just has one proton. We're going to have no neutrons and one electron. Okay, what I asked them this morning is, do you remember what goes in the center? What goes in the nucleus of the atom? And everybody agreed, oh, protons and neutrons. These two things right here go in the center of the atom. So I had them just draw it out. They put a plus sign, and because there's no neutrons, we didn't draw anything else. We simply put like a little circle around that proton to represent that's the nucleus. And then I asked them, well, where would the electron go? The one electron. And they said, oh, well, it's just outside. It's just outside of the nucleus. And that's right. You could draw rings on there if you wanted to, but today I'm not super worried about that. I just want you to know the protons and the neutrons would go in the middle. The electrons go outside the nucleus. Okay, so that's a good drawing of hydrogen. All right, so now what we're going to do is let's do the nuclear symbol. The nuclear symbol for hydrogen would be H. And then on the top, we're going to put 1/1. So let's talk about what this means, okay? So this is a nuclear symbol, and a nuclear symbol could just be any symbol. So any symbol, any atomic symbol. So this is the atomic symbol, okay? On the top here, we label that as A. A represents the mass number. The mass number, or the atomic mass, okay? And mass number comes from adding your protons and your neutrons. So in other words, it's all the stuff in the nucleus. It's all the particles from the nucleus. It's protons and neutrons. And then on the bottom here, we label that as Z. Z is your atomic number. Atomic number, or in other words, your protons. This is your protons. Okay. All right. So here again, this is our mass number that comes from protons plus neutrons. So 1 plus 0. This is your proton number, your Z. This is called a nuclear symbol. Okay. Nuclear symbol. All right. Next, we have hyphen notation. So how do you do a hyphen notation for this isotope? Well, this isotope, you would write down the name, hydrogen, and then hyphen, you put the mass number. So the mass number on this one is just 1. So hyphen notation is just the name of the element, hyphen the mass number. That's hyphen notation. Okay? All right. And then we did the drawing, right? You just have to know that protons and neutrons go in the center. Electrons just go outside the nucleus. That's all I want you to draw today when you're drawing these things out. This hydrogen isotope, so the special thing about hydrogen is that it has 3 isotopes. There are 3 of these. This one happens to be called protium. Protium, okay? So now, let's go and draw deuterium. Deuterium, okay? Now, protium and deuterium are both isotopes of hydrogen, so we're still talking about hydrogen. So having said that then, hydrogen is going to have 1 proton. So 1 proton, and protons always go in the center. So 1 proton. But deuterium means it's going to have one neutron as well. So we're going to put one neutron in there, and I'm just going to write down a 0, or sorry, not a 0, a 1 neutron. So we'll just put 1 neutron, do it like that. And then I'm going to put this in a circle because I want to show that that's my nucleus. And then outside of the nucleus, we're still just going to have 1 electron. Because hydrogen, its protons never change. The protons is always 1, and since we're drawing neutral atoms, we just got to make sure we cancel these things out. 1 proton, 1 electron. And this one happens to have 1 neutron, 1 proton. So it's going to change the mass, right? So let's come up with our nuclear symbol. Our nuclear symbol for this would be hydrogen. And then the mass, the atomic mass, for this one is going to be 2 because protons plus neutrons, 2. And what number goes on the bottom? Well, we're still talking about hydrogen, so it's just 1. It's 1 proton. So there's our nuclear symbol. Okay. And then we want to write the hyphen notation. And remember, it's just the name of the element, hydrogen, dash the mass, which here it's 2. Okay. So what I had them do earlier was they had to come up with the 3rd isotope. So I told them the name is tritium. Tritium. So can you come up with then the hyphen notation and the nuclear symbol and tell me how many particles that would be? Okay. So if you wanted to pause the video here and try it out, you could. But tritium, we're still talking about hydrogen isotopes, so we know this is going to be hydrogen, right? It's always, hydrogen always has 1 proton. Okay, it's going to have 1 electron to cancel out that proton. So how many neutrons would it have? Well, because we're talking about 3, that represents the mass here. So that's going to represent our mass should be a total of 3. So if you already have 1 proton, how many neutrons do you need? 2. So there's our particle count. So we're going to draw our 1 proton there in the middle. We're going to have 2 neutrons this time, which you could draw, little circles if you wanted to. This is our nucleus. And we've still got that 1 electron because it's still hydrogen. The protons don't change, and this is a neutral atom, so they just have to cancel each other out. Okay, so there's our drawing. Our hyphen or our nuclear symbol is going to be hydrogen, and then the mass of this one is 2, still over 1 because it's still hydrogen. It's still 1 proton. And then our hyphen notation, we write the name of the element, hydrogen, dash its mass, which is 2. Okay? All right. So that's what we're doing today. We're trying to come up with particles and hyphen notation and nuclear symbols, okay? The next thing that I had them do today was they are starting on this worksheet today, and this is what I would like you to start on as well too. Okay, if I can get that pulled up here. Okay, so this is what's listed, and it says fill in the missing information and draw the subatomic particles in color for each atom listed. So there's 8 total of these things, and there are just different pieces of the puzzle here on each one of these, but these all represent atoms of an element, okay? So for instance, on this one right here, if you look, I gave you carbon 14, but I want to know the element name, the nuclear symbol, and then you're going to have to draw it out, and you're going to need your colors. So let's do this one together. And you can do this on a piece of notebook paper and submit this if you wanted to. Or you could try to draw it on this. I mean, I think personally it's just a lot easier to write it in a notebook, and then you take a picture and upload it, right? I think that's the easiest thing. So what you're going to do though, so I gave you the hyphen notation. So we know we're going to need the element name. Well, that's easy, right? It's just carbon. So that's our element name. So you would fill that in. It's just carbon. We need the nuclear symbol, okay? So the nuclear symbol, you'd have to look at a periodic table. So you'll need one pulled up on your phone probably. The nuclear symbol is just carbon. And then this mass number, remember, The mass number, this is, this is representative of A, atomic mass. A goes on top. So this is 14 over, what number should go on the bottom? Well, it's the proton number, right? The Z. So the proton number here, you would look on the periodic table and it's just the whole number listed in the little box. And for carbon, it's the number 6. So there's our nuclear symbol. Okay, we have our element name. There's our hyphen notation. And then just for kicks, if you wanted to go ahead and write it out, you could write out how many particles you're going to have to show. I've got to have 6 protons. And if I have 6 pluses, I know I'm going to have 6 minuses, right? So there's my protons and electrons. So how about my neutrons? How am I going to get that? Well, I would look at my mass, and I would take my mass and take away the protons. Because remember, mass comes from the middle. Mass comes from the nucleus. So 14 minus 6 tells me I need 8 neutrons. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this out. And the way that I would do this, I wouldn't worry about trying to draw all these plus signs. I would simply put 6 protons. And I know I'm going to have 8 neutrons. I'm going to draw that like that. And then you could either draw out, 6, the number 6 electrons. But I like drawing green dashes. So there's my 6 electrons. Okay, that's what you're going to be doing today for this sheet. There are 8 problems. Well, now there are 7 problems, but that's what you need to do. If you have any questions, email me, let me know. Okay. And if you're virtual, I will see you Tuesday or Thursday. All right. Have a good week.